Hello, and welcome to the Monster Painter. This week, Dave is back, and he brought
dice trays.
All right, one thing I definitely love in this life is taking skills from the regular world and applying them to the tabletop. How do you do that, Dave?
Well, I am a professional picture framer.
How long have you been a picture framer, Dave?
Approaching 20 years now. I work with galleries and just your regular customers putting things on their wall.
Right, and what led you to make these things?
So we get a lot of scrap at work, and it's a shame to throw it away. And I one day thought to myself, especially this frame, this was my first one I made, and I thought this would look great with dice in it.
And it sure as hell does. So you make some lovely dice trays. Where do you get the materials for these things?
It's the ends of jobs, the scraps and the discontinued moldings from work. Yeah, it's just a waiting game for the right material to come in.
Right, so you're waiting around until the pretty bits of garbage fall into your lap?
Well, it's not garbage. They're very expensive moldings sometimes, but it's just scrap. So I get
Right.
the luck of working in this industry.
Right, you work in the industry, you get good quality scraps. Would these be going to the dump?
Normally, yeah.
Okay, so that's some sweet upcycling then. So you get the frames from work and they're scrap, but this isn't all just frame, is it, Dave?
No, not at all. I have to source out materials for the linings, and we have a luxury of having lots of wonderful fabric stores here in Toronto.
Right.
And so this one, for example, is leather. And I get scrap leather from the fabric stores. It may only cost me a couple bucks for that leather.
What else do you use?
I use felt, and I use this was a placemat for like a kitchen table, and this one is just a bolt of felt I got from the Dollarama.
Very good. So, Dave, how do you go about making these things?
Well, there's two styles of picture frames. There's ones that have an open face, and there's other ones that are float frame. And you have two different ways of going about filling these in. So, for example, with this, I have it's like an illustration board with the leather wrapped around, and then leather glued down to a base there, and just sort of glued in. I'm using polyvinyl acetate, which is a nice rubbery, flexible, very fast drying bookbinding glue.
Okay, well, tell me about this one, Dave.
So that one I've used felt as a liner. I got it from a Dollarama. And one of the things to keep in mind when using felt compared to say leather is that it can absorb people's cheesy poo fingers and water and stuff like that. So this might not be the best material for a dice tray, but it's pretty.
Okay.
Show the bottom of this one. So this one was made out of felt, and then so you have to kind of finish it in the end with everything kind of jammed in there and made nice and snug to withstand people constantly rolling dice and reaching their hands in there. And yeah, so it's a bit of work, a couple hours work. And so this one is an early one I made, and it's one of the ones where I kind of realized that maybe the depth of the frame, sometimes it can be on a table, it can be a bit too deep. So that's something I looked for in future frames as I was making them.
Oh my God, dear God, Dave, this is a giant monster.
Yeah, so that's an example where it is a deep frame, but this time what I've done is I built up the base of it so that it's up high, and so this way on the table everyone can see what you've rolled, without having to sort of get up from the chair and look. So that one is my favorite. That one has the perfect balance of the window opening and the nice, it's made of leather, has a wonderful sound with the dice in it, and just a beautiful profile. That's my baby for sure. And the only other consideration for this is to make sure you're not scratching up whatever table you're playing.
So you put some feet on these guys?
Yeah, little bump-ons. This one doesn't have any yet, but it should at some point. Or I finish it with some mat board or some felt or whatever as a backing there.
But you put as much consideration into the top as the bottom?
Yeah, it's all the aesthetics of having a pretty dice tray. This is also a ridiculously large, chunky frame that I specifically built for a friend of mine because I think he'll
Your
appreciate
friend
it.
Andrew,
Yes, that's right.
who is a crazy Titan playing
Yes.
grognard of the First Order.
Yes, that's right. He doesn't know it's coming to him, so maybe we're giving it away.
I don't know if he watches the channel.
Well, I won't send him the video until
he gets his
he
gift.
gets his gift, I guess.
But I need the ratings, Dave. So, which leads us to the reason you make these things. This is, how much time and effort do you put into a particular
It
piece?
takes about 2 to 3 hours of labor, not including sourcing out the materials, the fabric for the lining.
Right. So other than the sourcing, the actual construction takes a couple of hours.
2 to 3 hours,
And of course, you're doing this on your own time. You're not using company time.
Nope, I'm doing it all on my own time.
And so, what are you? Why? Why, Dave?
For me, it's just creating something I think is really beautiful.
Obviously, you're making beautiful things. But what are you doing with those beautiful things that you make?
Well, I make quite a number of them, so I can't keep them all. So I keep a few more for myself, and the rest I gift to people.
Mm-hmm. So you're gifting, you're recycling materials, you're applying your skills to make something that you find aesthetically pleasing, and then ultimately you're gifting them rather than you're creating some sort of a really hyper annoying side hustle for yourself.
That's right, and there will eventually be the Monster Painter themed dice tray.
Okay, Dave, do you got any future plans for new designs?
I am toying with the idea of a dueling dice tray, and that's to create a dice tray a little bit longer, the dividers, so that when you're playing a game that it's a dice game that involves rolling dice against each other at the same time.
Lots of
you
dice.
have your own slot, and you can see what each other's rolling at the same time, but they then intermix it.
Very good. So, Dave, do you have any advice to somebody who might want to make one of these fabulous dice trays themselves?
So I would say the best thing you can do is hunt for a molding that you really like, maybe in an antiquing or a Value Village or something like that, and bring it to someone who can cut it down to the size you want. Now, the other thing you can do is just be friendly with your local frame shop and ask them if they have scrap, or if they could put some aside if something should come up. The important thing, of course, is that it has the right depth. Beyond that, it just comes down to what you think is pretty and looks great on your table.
All right, Dave. Thank you so much for bringing over your dice trays and talking about this crazy craft that you do in your spare time.
I'm happy to show it. No one ever gets to see these things.
So true. Next week on The Monster Painter, I sort out my maze of Malcor bestiary for Frostgrave.
Remember to like, roll dice, comment, subscribe,
and ring the bell! Ring the bell!
You are watching Les the Monster Painter.